vielleicht nur als Impulsant.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Race to Power. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and on the show today, after the Republican Texas, now the Democrat government California wants redistricting ahead of the midterm elections next year. And in Sri Lanka, the former President Ranil Wickremesinghe has been arrested on charges of alleged misuse of government funds. But let's, of course, start with this big story from the United States of America, where it is a political firefight between the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States. The redistricting route, which was rolled out by the Trump administration in Texas, has now reached California. And the key trigger behind this political storm is the upcoming midterm elections that is slated for November next year in 2026. On Thursday, the lawmakers of the state of California voted to approve a redistricting plan. The majorly Democrat administration has set in motion a plan to redraw California's congressional map, which will help the blue camp secure 5 more seats in the House of Representatives next year. Now, ahead of the vote, the Republican lawmakers in California slammed the Democrats for this move, but the Democrat lawmakers in their retort said that the move was in response to what the red camp was doing in Texas for Donald Trump.
This plan is a violation of what little public trust we have left with Californians. It's expensive, it's rushed, and it's done without the consent of the very people that we claim to be protecting. And if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. And I don't agree that it should happen anywhere.
And it's going to get worse, and you're going to get more. And it's not going to be on us, because we are doing everything we can in California to stop it. We're not doing this to the people. We're doing this with the people. And we are asking the people on November 4th to validate our fear of Donald Trump's power.
The state administration has now decided to undertake this overhaul on the basis of a public vote, following the approval of a new map and a bill calling for citizens' vote. California's Governor Gavin Newsom has signed the legislation for a special election. The polls will be held on the 4th of November.
This is not something 6 weeks ago that I ever imagined we would be doing. This is being done in response from Texas. This was not an organized effort. This was a reaction to an assault on our democracy in Texas, and we're going to continue to support those that are of like mind to get the vote out and to get the word about what this is all about.
Now, the Republicans who first set this putsch in motion have also approved the new congressional map for Texas. And this is expected to put the Republicans in a favorable position in the next year's midterm polls. The measure was finally passed in the state's lower chamber by about 88 votes to 52, creating 5 new Republican-friendly districts. In the United States, individual states legally have the power to redraw their districts, usually once a decade after the census. But the Republicans, at the behest of Donald Trump, are now pushing for mid-decade map changes in states such as Ohio, Missouri, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Florida. So as criticism rises against Donald Trump, his popularity is a bit unstable, and protests are breaking out against every move. The stakes, of course, could not be higher for the American president. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Mr. Christopher Hale, who is a Democrat strategist And he's worked for Presidents Barack Obama and Joe Biden in the White House and has also been on the campaign trail. Mr. Hale, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, the Democrat governor, Gavin Newsom, said that this reaction in California, this action is actually a reaction to what has happened in Texas, which he describes as an assault on America's democracy. If what happened in Texas was an assault on America's democracy, why is he doing exactly the same thing in California?
I think we have to fight fire with fire. I think the reality of it is that if we allow the Republicans to rig Texas, which they got picked up 5 seats, I believe, and we don't do the same, that is actually abdicating our responsibility. We don't like this. We didn't start this fight, and let's be clear: it started with Governor Abbott in Texas, and it was orchestrated by the White House. We know that the White House is trying to get Indiana to change its seats and other states to have 1 or 2 Democratic seats. So I think this is a fight that we did not choose. But why would we advocate? Why would we let Texas do this and not fight back? What's your suggestion otherwise, that we just let them go and rig the system and have a situation where Democrats win 54% of the popular vote, but don't get the majority in the House? This is the only pathway forward.
It's interesting that you're describing this entire exercise as effectively as a rigging an election. It is legally permissible, but there are a lot of question marks about, is it something that can be done just because it is legal? So will we now witness this in state after state in the United States of America, where the governing party will go ahead and redraw the districts, or probably the judiciary could perhaps step in and say that this is effectively another way of rigging from the back door?
I think that is hopefully the end situation here, is that the courts will step up. There is a wide legal pathway for gerrymandering, but if we get to such extreme levels, I hope that judicial process for the Supreme Court can get rid of this. I mean, we see gerrymandering, and let's be real, both parties do it, but the Republicans are clearly on the offensive here. But yes, without the court stepping in, we will see the most ridiculous gerrymandered maps, and not just like in a couple of years, the next 3 to 6 months. The election next year will be a circus with maps that, just look at the map in Texas and look at the map in California. These are not districts. These are politicians choosing their voters not choosing their politicians. So without the court stepping in, this is our reality in the United States.
Interesting. It is politicians choosing their voters and not the other way around, as you'd expect in a democracy. Voters choosing their politicians. We'll have to see as to how this unfolds. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Christopher Hale, for joining us with our perspective there.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now after weeks of negotiations and some pretty strong statements, the United States and the European Union have reached an agreement on tariffs. The deal establishes a uniform 15% tariff on several key sectors, including pharmaceuticals, semiconductors and automobiles. The deal that was reached on Thursday signals a strategic shift from Trump's previously threatened tariff hikes. The European Union has called it the most favorable deal that America has extended to any trading partner.
This is the most favorable trade deal the U.S. has extended to any partner. A wide range of sectors, including strategic industries such as cars, pharmaceuticals, semiconductors and lumber, will benefit from this cap.
However, several observers say that the agreement is a win for Donald Trump. The deal also reduces automobile tariffs for EU to 15%. However, there are some conditions. European Union will have to lower its own industrial duties on American cars. And this positions the American car makers more competitively in Europe, while also retaining leverage in its domestic market. Now, the EU's pledge to purchase $750 billion worth of U.S. energy directly boosts American exports and supports U.S. oil and gas producers. It's also a major step in reducing the EU reliance on other energy suppliers. The EU's commitment to invest about $600 billion in the United States, particularly in areas like advanced technology, AI chips and infrastructure, strengthens the U.S. innovation base and creates new opportunities for American industries and workers. Now, experts say that the details of this agreement tilts the global trade flows in favor of U.S. interests. The deal paves the way for enhanced supply chain stability and expanded market access across strategic sectors for American businesses. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Will Denslow, who's joining us live from Brussels. So, Will, this is a pretty crucial deal that has been struck. The Americans are saying that this is perhaps, one of the most generous deals that has been struck. Automobiles has got some bit of a reprieve, but what are the key industries, that is wine industry in Europe, hasn't exactly got what the European nations in fact wanted. How is this deal being viewed in Brussels then?
Well, of course, it's important to remember that this is a framework trade agreement that was reached several weeks ago in Scotland between Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission President, and US President Donald Trump at that meeting in Scotland. It's then been weeks of further negotiations to get to this point that we saw this week of this joint statement being issued. So that really just shows how many points still needed to be established, and the fact that this remains to be a work in progress. The European Commission has described it as just a first step, but they say it provides more stability and predictability for businesses, companies, consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. You mentioned the wine and liquor industry, beer as well, also haven't been able to seek these carve-outs, these exemptions from this 15% tariff rate. The liquor and wine lobby here in Brussels has said that they described this deal as a missed opportunity. They very much hope to seek concessions in the future. That's a point that we've heard from EU officials saying much to that effect, saying that this is just the first step. They hope that negotiations will continue at pace and for more carve-outs, more exemptions from this 15% to be applied down the line. Of course, the message all along here in Brussels has been that tariffs are taxes that hurt consumers and businesses, both here in Europe and in the US as well.
Very interesting. We'll have to see as to how that dynamic plays out between the European Union and the United States. Thank you very much indeed, Will Denslow, for joining us from Brussels with all those details there. All right, now days after the American President Donald Trump sparred with his former National Security Advisor John Bolton and ridiculed him as a fired loser, the FBI has now raided the former NSA's home in Washington, D.C. Now, according to reports that are now coming in, John Bolton has been raided as part of a national security investigation over classified documents. Now, shortly after news of the raid went public, the FBI Director Kash Patel posted a pretty stern message on X. No one is above the law. The FBI agents are on mission. Now remember, John Bolton served as the US's National Security Advisor in President Donald Trump's first term. He's been an arch critic of Donald Trump ever since he was shunted out of the White House. Now, the FBI raids have come days after John Bolton criticized Trump's decision to hold a summit meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. And ahead of the summit, John Bolton had expressed some strong criticism of Donald Trump on global television networks. Listening to what John Bolton had told WION exclusively just a couple of days back.
Right. I think the meeting in Alaska is a win for Putin. I mean, he goes from being an international pariah, leading a rogue state that committed unprovoked aggression against Ukraine, to standing in the world spotlight, having his picture taken with the President of the United States. That's a big win for him right there. And I think he will use the opportunity to meet with Trump to try and work his KGB training on him further and see if he can't make steps toward the relationship they used to have, which in Trump's mind was that they were good friends.
Now, John Bolton has repeatedly taken on Donald Trump in the recent past. Bolton had likened the Alaska summit to the controversial visit by the Taliban representatives to the United States. Now, Bolton had also criticized Trump's display of military readiness when he repositioned nuclear submarines near Russia. He warned that this move was reckless and it could be misread by the Kremlin as a first strike warning. All right, now joining us from New York is our correspondent Susan Tehrani with all the details. Susan, take us through what's been happening with this FBI raid that has taken place at John Bolton's residence.
So the searches seem to be, Mohammed, part of an ongoing national security investigation on whether or not John Bolton improperly got classified documents and possesses them, possibly related to his 2020 memoir that he wrote shortly after he was fired from the White House by President Trump. We're seeing that FBI is not only raiding his home in Maryland, but also his office in Washington, D.C. Footage is coming out of FBI agents coming out with boxes of documents. We are told that John Bolton is in that office at Washington, D.C. Now, it's important to note that there was a court order that allowed this raid to happen, and we are learning that CIA Director John Ratcliffe also shared some information, classified information, with the FBI, where the FBI was able to take this to the court and get this order where they're able to go in and raid his office and, of course, his home as well. Now, we are going to be seeing what the court order says. There's going to be an affidavit attached to that, and possibly we'll get a better understanding about what the FBI was looking for and what its justifications were.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Susan Tehrani, for joining us with all those updates there. All right, now the American President Donald Trump's sweeping crime control measures have sparked massive protests throughout Washington, D.C. Demonstrators were seen marching across the city, gathering at major intersections and also waving signs and flags at busy traffic stops. Now, Trump declared a public safety emergency last week, saying a violent crime wave threatened the city. He also ordered for thousands of National Guard soldiers and federal agents to deploy across Washington. But the increased troop presence has triggered demonstrations. Residents are protesting against what they see as an extraordinary assertion of presidential power, one that has few precedents in the nation's capital. On Thursday, tensions intensified at the DC's Union Station, where protesters loudly heckled the American Vice President J.D. Vance and the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The new crackdown by the Trump administration has brought aggressive stop and frisk searches, federal patrols through neighborhoods, and confusing encounters as people were stopped without clear reasons. Meanwhile, city officials have challenged Trump's crime narrative by pointing to federal and local data. They say that the recent research shows that the violent crime has actually reduced significantly since it spiked in 2023. And this data contradicts the US president's portrayal of Washington as beset by the ongoing violence and criminal activity. Now, a bail hearing is in fact currently underway in Sri Lanka for the arrested former President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was taken into custody earlier in the day. The police arrested Wickremesinghe on charges of alleged misuse of government funds. Now, he happens to be the senior-most opposition figure to be arrested under an anti-corruption crackdown by the new leftist government. The former Sri Lankan president arrived at the magistrates' court in Colombo after recording a statement with the Criminal Investigation Department. Following his arrest, hearing is still underway for his bail plea. Now, the 76-year-old was taken into custody by the Criminal Investigation Department for allegedly using state funds for a private overseas trip when he was president. And according to the Sri Lankan police, Wickremesinghe has been accused of using public funds to travel to England to attend a convocation ceremony of his wife, Professor Maitri Wickremesinghe, at a British university in September 2023. Now, Wickremesinghe had stopped in London in 2023 on his way back from Havana, where he attended a G77 summit. In the United Kingdom's capital, he and his wife attended a University of Wolverhampton ceremony, and Wickremesinghe had in fact maintained his wife's travel expenses had been met by her and that no state funds had been used. However, the CID has alleged that Wickremesinghe used government money for his travel on a private visit and that his bodyguards were also paid by the state. Sri Lanka's anti-graft units have been leading the crackdown since President Anura Kumara Dissanayake, who defeated Wickramasinghe, came to power last year. Now, fight corruption in the country has been one of Disanayake's key campaign promises. The timing of the arrest is very interesting. The arrest comes as Dissanayake-led government is set to complete its first year in power next month. Now, several opposition leaders are coming out in support of Ranil Wickramasinghe, slamming his arrest by the authorities as quote-unquote cheap theatrics. Sajith Premadasa, who also contested the presidential elections last year, has raised questions on the misuse of law and order. Now, Spain is protesting against the government over the mishandling of raging wildfires in the country. In northern Spain, hundreds of protesters took to the streets holding placards and posters decrying the government for its handling of the raging wildfires. The citizens, who are reeling from the devastation of the worst fires in 20 years, have accused the ruling Popular Party of taking inadequate action.
We show solidarity and are thankful to the national and foreign personnel in Galicia who are risking their lives fighting fires. But these workers cannot be precarious. The fire extinguishing services cannot be in private hands. They are in private hands in Galicia, in Castilla y León. They are in private hands, and this is an atrocity.
Están en manos privadas en Galicia, están en manos privadas en Castilla y León.
The 18 large wildfires are still raging through several regions of Spain. In the past few days, 3,400 troops from the army and 50 aircraft have been deployed to assist the firefighters in combating the blaze. An estimated 400,000 hectares has been gutted in the wildfires. This is the largest series of blaze on record since 2006. While conditions are beginning to improve, many have blamed agricultural policies like single crop farming for increasing the risk of wildfires. In South America, tensions are on the rise between Peru and Colombia over a territorial dispute in the Amazon. Now, Peru's Congress has voted overwhelmingly to declare Colombian President Gustavo Petro persona non grata following disagreements over sovereignty of Santa Rosa Island, a landmass that emerged due to the changing water levels in the Amazonian River. The motion passed with 50 votes in favour, none against and 17 abstentions during a legislative session on the 21st of August. The Santa Rosa Island lies near the triple border region between Peru, Colombia and Brazil, and it is close to the Colombian city of Leticia and Brazil's Tabatinga, and President Petro has claimed that Peru has improperly asserted control over the island and has called for the dispute to be resolved through bilateral negotiations. Meanwhile, the Peruvian Foreign Ministry insists that the border is clearly defined by historical agreements, specifically the 1922 Treaty of Limits and River Navigation and the 1934 Rio de Janeiro Protocol, which settled territorial conflicts after a brief war between the two nations. The situation underscores the ongoing tensions in the Amazon region, where shifting river paths and natural changes continue to affect borders and sovereignty claims. And with that, a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
It's a fantastic platform, I think, for the business leaders thought what they have been thinking. You need, so it is to keep you updated. So I think WION is a fantastic channel fantastic platform to keep yourself updated and getting the thoughts from the business leader.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions